Hey everyone, today I'm going to give you the full review for the Veikk VK2200 pen display. A few weeks ago I made the unboxing video showing you all the things that are included. Today I want to show you the drawing performance on Mac and Windows and also the driver functionality. Now this video is going to be a bit long, so if you want to save time you can check out the text review that I have already written. The link is in the video description below. This, by the way, it's a sponsored unit, so big thanks to Veikk for sending one over for this review. Now the VK2200 is a 21.5 inch IPS panel that supports a resolution of 1080p, and this pen display is actually a monitor, so you do have to connect it to a computer and a power source in order to use it. I have reviewed many of Veikk's products before, so let me just compare the one that I reviewed earlier, the VK1560 Pro, just to let you see the difference in size. So you can see this 1560 Pro, it fits within the display itself, so you're getting about this much of extra space. So this is 15.6 inch and this is 21.5 inch. Both the 15.6 inch and 21.5 inch displays are good sizes to work with, so which one to get really depends on which size you prefer. And the other difference is the shortcuts. For the 15.6 inch, there is the scroll wheel, which is quite convenient when it comes to changing brush sizes. And lastly, of course, how much table space you have. Now at the time of this review, the price of the 21.5 inch is US $379, last seen on Amazon.com. The strange thing is the 15.6 inch is also $379, but currently Amazon is running a 15% sale on this, so this VK1560 Pro is slightly cheaper, but I'm actually quite surprised that their official retail price is the same. Design of this pen display, it looks good. I like the rounded corners. The bezel is not that thin, but this is very functional because when your hand is on the left or right side, there is an area that you can rest on comfortably. There are 6 touch buttons on the left, and these are the 5 OSD menu buttons. The power button is right at the top. Now if you are left-handed, the 6 buttons will still be on the left side because this button layout, it's not symmetrical. The glass actually has a matte surface texture on it, so you can see how it diffuses the light. The anti-glare, it's quite aggressive, so if you are viewing the display from the side and there are reflections, the reflections are going to be diffused like that. And this is not a matte screen protector, this is the actual glass itself. Advantage of a matte surface screen is it has a very nice tactile surface you can draw on. And the downside is sometimes the matte surface screen or the matte screen protector, it can affect sharpness, but here all the details, they look reasonably sharp. Now this is a 1080p resolution display, so you are definitely going to see big pixels, but it's still a very usable resolution. It makes all the user interface elements big, but slightly pixelated compared to smaller displays or higher resolution screens. This is a laminated display, so there is almost no gap between the drawing surface and the actual display beneath. So it would seem like the lines, they are appearing directly beneath the pen tip. Now you may see some gap here in this video, but that's because of the camera angle. When you're looking at your drawing, it's going to look something like this. And this is pretty accurate after calibration. Out of the box, the colors on this pen display look good, but I have color calibrated it using my Spider-5 Pro and got a readout of 95% sRGB and 82% Adobe RGB support, so color accuracy is quite good. Maximum brightness is about 200 nits, which is quite adequate for indoor use. This is the back of the pen display. The stand is built in. This is the bottom of the stand. And we have the cables running from this side, full-size HDMI, power and USB. And you can adjust the stand by releasing the latch here. This is the highest the stand can go, and the display is almost vertical. And this is the lowest position. It can go with the rubber feet still touching the table. I need to mention that because this bottom rubber feet, you can actually adjust it so that you can rest the monitor base on the table, but you will want to use the rubber feet because it will prevent the monitor from moving around. And this is a very comfortable angle to work with. And I have this display on for a few hours already, and it doesn't give out much heat, so you can definitely comfortably use this for hours without feeling any discomfort. This display can attract fingerprints quite easily, so you may want to use the artist gloves included. The touch buttons on the side, they work quite well. These are not physical buttons. By the way, this display doesn't support any finger gestures because there is no touch on the screen. The OSD menu buttons here are locked by default, so if you press it, you can see the key lock dialog box come out. So to unlock it, you have to press and hold for a few seconds. It takes some time for this menu to appear, but the good thing is once you set all these settings, you don't have to go into the menu again. So let's see what we can change. Backlight and brightness. I actually have no idea what the difference is between these two because they both adjust brightness. We have contrast, sharpness, and this seems to be locked. We can adjust the gamma, color temperature, color effect, hue and saturation. This is where you can change the aspect ratio. These are the manual settings. And HDCP is disabled, so you may not be able to watch some content protected media or videos. There is a lot of color settings you can adjust, so color calibrating this display is a bit more challenging. The first time I color calibrated the screen, I got a readout of less than 90% sRGB, so I had to go in and tweak all these settings to get the maximum possible sRGB support. After you're done with the OSD menu, it will disappear by itself after a few seconds, and the buttons here, they will auto lock. Now this auto lock feature is actually quite useful because I have noticed several times that when my hand is here, I would accidentally touch those buttons, and because it's locked, I won't get into the menu accidentally, so that's great. Let's run through what you can do with the driver very quickly. So this is where you can customize the two side buttons. On the pen, you can adjust the pressure sensitivity by adjusting this pressure curve. And this pen, it's very sensitive. It supports up to slightly over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. And there is tilt support as well, even though it's not marketed on Veik's website for some reason. Now for mapping, this is where you can calibrate to remove the misalignment between the cursor and the pen tip. For some reason, when you click Start Calibration, they will ask you to go into dual screen mode or extended desktop mode. So here I have the pen display desktop, and this is actually my laptop desktop. So after you calibrate it, the cursor will be directly beneath the pen tip, but you need to stay in this extended desktop mode. If you go back to a single screen or mirror mode, it will lose the calibration setting, and if you are using Mac OS and you restart the computer, it will lose the calibration setting. So I'm not sure if I can recommend this pen display for Mac OS users, and for Windows users, you have to always use dual screen mode, even if you don't use the other screen. If you are a left-handed user, well, it doesn't make sense to rotate the orientation because the 6 shortcut buttons will still be on the left side and the OSD menu will still be on the right side. Now this enable Windows Ink function, you will need to turn this on if you are using Photoshop in order to get pressure sensitivity working. But with Medibank Paint Pro, you need to turn this off, or else when you're drawing there will be glitches with the lines. So if there are any issues with the lines or pressure sensitivity not working, you have to toggle Windows Ink on and off to troubleshoot. So this is where you can customize the 6 touch buttons. On the left side, you can customize them to mouse click, keyboard shortcuts, specific keyboard shortcuts just by entering whatever key you want. Accurate mode will move the cursor much slower so that you can draw more accurately. This is the pen eraser toggle in Photoshop. For monitor switch, if you are using dual monitors, you can press this button and the cursor will switch from one display to the other or switch back. And this is not used here because there is no control wheel. You can create shortcut sets by clicking this plus icon, so you can have a set of shortcuts for Photoshop, for Illustrator, or for any software that you use. So after calibrating the pen, the cursor looks like it's directly beneath the pen tip. And oh, this pen, by the way, it's powered by battery, so you do need to charge this. And they have provided 2 pens, so even if you run out of battery for this pen, you can always use the backup while you're charging this. Alright, let's do some drawing tests now. So there's no pressure sensitivity. You have to go into the settings to turn on Windows Ink in order for pressure to work. So now pressure is working. And you may notice some input lag. So there is a gap between the line and the pen tip as you are drawing. But this is the typical Photoshop lag. This pen is quite sensitive. Initial activation force is quite minimal. So you can draw thin lines very easily just by applying very light pressure. So you can pick a very big brush and you can draw with very faint pressure. You can get those thin lines very easily. Let's try some dots. So dots seems to be working well. The strokes, they taper quite nicely. The slight Photoshop input lag is actually not a big deal when it comes to drawing. The lines are also able to maintain consistent pressure. So sometimes when drawing long lines like this with other pen displays, the lines may jitter or the thickness of the line may vary even though you are applying the same amount of pressure when drawing the line. So here, this is great. I can draw very slow, I can draw very fast, and the lines, they come out just the way I expect them to. By the way, when you have Windows Ink turned on, you won't be able to select text with the pen, so you have to use your mouse. Thankfully, within the drawing software, you can still select text with the pen. This is Medibank Paint Pro. Alright, so I see some jitter. Can you see the jitter here with the straight line? And the thickness of this curve, it wavers. So this is actually a problem with Windows Ink. So I need to turn off Windows Ink and let's try again. So now with Windows Ink turned off, the lines, they are smoother. You can see the lines, they no longer waver in thickness. Clip Studio Paint works really well. The lines, they taper very nicely. And this app, it's very responsive. Pressure works well. This is Krita on Windows. It's very responsive and pressure works. What I want to show you here is actually tilt sensitivity. Now pay attention to the cursor. It's now facing this direction. Now, unlike other pen displays where the cursor would actually follow the pen as you move or turn the pen, here the cursor only follows when the pen tip is on the screen. When the pen tip is in contact with the screen, the cursor will then follow. So I'm going to have the hard edge on the left side. And you can see that pressure actually works. Tilt and pressure can work at the same time as well. So now I'm applying a lot more pressure. I've also tried Affinity Photo and Illustrator. Pressure works with those two apps as well. On macOS, the driver is located inside System Preferences. Driver functionality is the same as Windows. As mentioned earlier, if you were to calibrate this and you restart your Mac, the calibration will be lost. So I've just calibrated the cursor, and from where I'm looking at right now, the cursor is directly beneath the pen tip. So I'm going to restart this and show you what happens. This is after rebooting the system. So earlier on, the cursor was on the left side of the pen tip, and now it's on the right side. Now the main difference is when it's properly calibrated, you can click on things just by looking at the pen tip. But when it's not calibrated like this, you have to click on things by looking at where the cursor is instead of the pen tip. The other thing about the macOS driver is the pressure sensitivity adjustment. It doesn't work. You can adjust the curve, yes, but the changes will not be reflected when you are actually drawing. I'm currently drawing with the least amount of pressure possible, and the lines are thick. Even though I have already changed the driver to produce thin lines with light pressure, but it's obviously not working. And I've just adjusted the pressure curve again to produce very thick lines with the least amount of pressure possible, and you can see there's absolutely no difference here. This is Medibank Paint Pro, and the pressure sensitivity works a bit better here. So even with a thick brush, I can still get thin lines easily, a bit more easily compared to Photoshop. But with Windows, it's even more sensitive than this, so the lines can be even thinner when you apply very faint pressure. So in order to get thin lines here, you actually have to adjust the brush size to get those thin lines. This is Clip Studio Paint, and pressure works better here compared to Photoshop as well. So I can get thin lines relatively easily. And this is very responsive. And the lines, they are very smooth and taper very well. This is Krita, and I can get the thin lines very easily here as well. So maybe it could be an issue with Photoshop for some reason. The lines, they taper quite nicely here as well. So thin lines, not a problem here. Let's try tilt. So the cursor is not following the direction of the pen as well. And tilt, it's not working here. So these thin strokes, they are just following the shape of the cursor. By right, the hard edge should be on the left side and fade to the right. And nope, it's not working. Pressure also seems to work fine with Affinity Photo. I can get the thin lines very easily. Alright, to conclude, I like the design. The build quality seems to be quite solid. The matte drawing surface, it's really satisfying to draw on, and color support is quite good. So the hardware aspect overall are pretty good. When it comes to drawing performance, the VK2200, this performs way better and more consistently on Windows because the driver support is much better. So I was able to get the lines to come out just the way I want them to with all the various drawing software that I have tested. On macOS, unfortunately, the driver support is not that good. So hopefully there will be future driver updates to address all those problems that I have listed. More specifically, when you restart your Mac, you no longer remember the pen calibration, so the misalignment will come back, and the pen pressure settings, it doesn't work and it affects Photoshop for some reason, but not the other drawing software on the Mac. And lastly, there is still support on Windows, but not on Mac for, again, some reason. So yeah, this is the detailed review. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If I have any updates to this video, I'll put all those updates in the text review where you can find in the video description below. I hope this video is helpful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.